What does reparative work look like for the historical trauma and the impacts of the boarding schools on Native American people? When we talk about our history and the true history of things that happened to our people, the vast majority of folks don't even know that it happened. Folks talk about slavery, a lot of people know that it happened. They might not know the gist of it. When we talk about the impacts of the Native American, the original people of this land, there's not much known. My name is Ricky White, and I am a cultural specialist working for Fargo School District, as well as a consultant, First Nations consultants. The vast majority of our people lived on the East Coast. And if we look at the current demographic of the East Coast, Native Americans are actually the lowest representation. And that happened intentionally with removal acts, intentional forces to eradicate, annihilate, and assimilate Native American people through tactics of the boarding school era, where our children were taken from their families and put in these schools. And you were beaten if you spoke your language. You were beaten if you made any mention of your culture and your ways of life. And as the original founder of boarding schools said, kill the Indian and save the man. And so you're really left with a crippled, a people in the population. We are the living remnants of all of that loss, all of that trauma that is now manifested itself into poverty, into the highest murder and suicide rates and so forth.
I coordinate Indian education for the Fargo and West Fargo School District. We're looking at education, the homeless population, and then also the criminal justice system, and trying to break down stereotypes, misconceptions, bias, and trying to kind of share our narrative, our stories, and create a better understanding and empathy within our own community. And as a result of our boarding school generation, we've lost a whole generation of parenting that has been lost. They didn't have examples. They didn't have their parents there to nurture them and care for them. And then, it becomes a cycle. Their kids don't learn how to parent either if they don't have that positive example in their life. So, that as a result, we have, a lot of disparities as far as the health disparities, alcoholism, substance abuse, all as coping mechanisms for dealing with a lot of that trauma.
We're such a small representation of the populace. We're always told your size is too small, so you don't count. And so our voices typically don't get heard.
We've had so much of our culture and language lost. I grew up in poverty and a lot of things that have alcoholism and things in my home. I thought my culture was poverty. And then until I really started learning and listening to my elders and learning from people within our community, I learned that we had such a rich culture. And I think true reparations would be restoring our language and our culture. Because we know in the school district, when our Native American kids learn about themselves, they're more engaged, they want to be in school, and it creates a positive self-identity and pride in who they are and their culture.
But I think on the bigger landscape of it all, it's just having more folks know and understand a truth of things that happened and things that impacted Native American people that have landed us into really a state of chaos and the highest representation and disparities in so many areas, health disparities, crime, all of those unfortunate statistical categories. And so I think understanding that there is a rationale for why those things happened, so knowing that information is a set course for reparations.